It all began one summer morning when I discovered something truly outrageous. HOA Karen had installed spike strips on my private farm road. Yes, my private road. The audacity was breathtaking, and the stakes were even higher because this wasn't just any road. It was the only access point to my property for deliveries, farm vehicles, and emergency services. Naturally, I had to act, but carefully, because Karen's ego and sense of entitlement were legendary. I first noticed the spikes when my farm manager called. Frantic. "Sir, the tractors can't get through." Some kind of metal strips were laid across the road overnight. I drove out immediately, and there they were. Several menacing rows of sharp steel spikes glinting in the early sun, strategically placed to prevent vehicles from entering. My first thought was that this was beyond ridiculous. This was illegal. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my property. None. Yet there it was, an open challenge to my authority. Karen had always loved to test boundaries, but this was extreme. I decided to approach it with a mix of strategy and patience. First, I documented everything. High-resolution photos, drone footage, and a timestamp video of the spikes and the damage they could have caused. Then I called my legal team to discuss an immediate restraining order against any HOA personnel entering my property. Their advice was clear. This was trespassing, and Karen could be held personally liable. While the lawyers prepared the paperwork, I had to ensure no damage came to my vehicles or livestock. My farm team worked quickly to remove the spikes safely, taking precautions to avoid injury. As the last spike was lifted, I realized this was more than a petty HOA feud. Karen had just created a real danger. I decided it was time to escalate, not with anger but with strategy. I sent Karen a polite, yet firm, letter detailing her violation of property laws, the potential fines, and the criminal implications of intentionally placing dangerous spikes on private property. I copied the county sheriff's office and local news outlets. Her reaction was priceless. She went from confident and threatening to panicked and defensive within hours. It was almost comical watching her try to spin this as community safety instead of the blatant sabotage it was. Next, I decided to turn her stunt to my advantage. I used the footage and documentation to hold a community meeting, not just to warn neighbors about HOA overreach, but to highlight the extreme lengths some individuals would go to manipulate others. The meeting drew attention, and even some of her own supporters questioned her judgment and legality. Karen, realizing her position was tenuous, tried a final desperate move, sending a team to claim the spike installation was authorized. I calmly reminded them that authorization required signed agreements, which did not exist. I also highlighted that I had clear records of land ownership, utility access, and legal authority over every inch of the property in question. Their faces fell as the reality sank in. They had no power here. By the end of the week, Karen's HOA presence on my property had officially ended. My road was cleared, the spikes safely stored as evidence, and my reputation as someone who not only defended their land but did so intelligently was solidified. The community saw firsthand that entitlement without authority is meaningless. Karen had tried to intimidate and harm, but all she had accomplished was showing the importance of vigilance and legal preparedness. Even after this, I maintained a professional stance, knowing that any misstep could be twisted against me. My farm returned to normal operations, deliveries flowed freely, and the story of Karen's spike strips became a cautionary tale in the neighborhood. Any attempt at interference after this point was met with the memory of legal consequences, security measures, and the knowledge that I was willing to defend my property without compromise. In the end, Karen's spike strip stunt backfired spectacularly. Not only had she failed to assert any authority, but she had also exposed herself to serious legal repercussions. I had turned her overreach into a lesson for everyone. Respect private property or face the consequences. From then on, any mention of HOA interference was greeted with laughter and disbelief at her audacity. Karen had underestimated me, and now everyone knew it.